It is Thursday, July 13th, 2023, and I'm here in the Dallas, Texas area. Another hot day, supposed to be over 100 degrees, heat index probably 115. The cicadas are out in mass, making lots of noise, so I'm back inside where it's quiet. Again, I did an analogy on that a couple days ago when I was doing a teaching, and how when people aren't healed of their soul wounds, aren't delivered from their demonic spirits, it's like having cicadas outside. And all you hear is all this torment from demonic spirits causing you to feel, condemned and anxious and fearful and lustful and all the above. And when you get healed and delivered, it's like you come inside away from the enemy's voices, being their cicadas, and it's peaceful and it's quiet, and you can hear the Lord's voice, and you can actually be at peace instead of having drama in your lives. So many people that are not healed and not delivered have so much drama. It's exhausting. So anyway, welcome. Happy Thursday, almost midway through the month of July. The next Sunday morning service is this Sunday, the 16th. We'll be on Facebook, on YouTube, on TikTok, getting lots of people watching the Sunday morning services. It's at 10 a.m. Central. So if you don't have a church that understands how to get you healed, how to get you delivered, get those soul wounds healed, get delivered from demonic spirits, so you can actually have the fruit of the Spirit in your life, where you've got Christ's love and your joy and the peace and the patience and the kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. You don't have to control other people. You don't have to guilt other people. You don't have to make them feel miserable. You don't have to struggle with addictions anymore. You're free and you can enjoy life. It's a wonderful thing. So you can tune in this coming Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Central Time. And I'm going to be talking about the book of James. I'm going to go through the entire book of James. And it's got a lot of wisdom to learn from in the book of James. So tune in for that. He's the half-brother of Jesus. So, and then the next worldwide deliverance session is coming up on July the 30th, 9 p.m. Eastern, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. Thousands of people around the world that have been healed and delivered have given their testimony saying, oh my gosh, I've been in church my whole life and I didn't know that I needed delivered. But I was really controlling of other people, trying to make them, guilt them into doing what I wanted. And when I went through and got healed and delivered, oh my gosh, I had so much peace, so much joy. Now I feel like a real Christian, finally. So anyway, excited about the next worldwide deliverance session. Again, we've seen thousands of Christians and churchgoers who have been healed and delivered. And then September 9th is the next event currently I've got. It's in Dallas, Texas, at the Courtyard in Plano. We've been there a couple of times before. So the topic of the day was a request from a follower on YouTube wanting me to talk about when you have relationships with a person who has suffered narcissistic abuse. You know, if you're dating a person, I'm going to talk about in general relationships, but I'm also going to dive into when you're starting to date a person that has gone through some abuse, narcissistic abuse, you could call it Jezebel abuse, demonic abuse. Again, we've all had moms and dads that have had demonic spirits. It's just a matter of what level. You know, some people are very prideful. Some people are very controlling. Some people are very like the Pharisees and the scribes. And some people are, of course, subtle. Some people are more overt with that. So when you have a relationship with a person who has suffered narcissistic abuse, let me start with a person that maybe had a mom or a dad that was very controlling and manipulative, would say things that would hurt them and so forth. And so they grow up and they end up basically having the same wounds and the same demonic spirits and strongholds, and they tend to want to control you and manipulate you and have pride, and there's normally a sexual side of them that's not pure, not godly. And so when you start to have a relationship with someone like that, here's what happens essentially is you don't know, because they have not talked about this in church very often, if ever. And so you're clueless, and you start dating a person thinking that, hey, this is great. You know, they say they love me, and of course you're pretty much ignorant at that point when you're starting to date a person. You don't know. Of course, you yourself can operate in that spirit, but typically Jezebel is going to be latching on to people that are Ahabs. Ahabs are easier to manipulate, to control, and so forth. So when you start having dating relationships and you're in your teens, you're clueless. You have no idea. They've not taught this in the church, sadly. You know, you just want to wake up the pastors in the church saying, man, you guys got to learn this, because you have so many people in your congregations that need their wounds healed like everybody and delivered from their demons so they can actually have the fruit of the Spirit every day instead of hurting people and offending people. So anyway, you start dating a person, you don't know anything. You're attracted to them physically, normally is what happens initially. And then if they treat you pretty nice throughout the dating process, then oftentimes you get married. And then normally within, it could be the first couple of weeks, it could be the first week, it could be the first couple of months, you'll start seeing a different side of them, because they're now like, hey, I got you. Now I can treat you like I want to treat you, and that is, I want to control you. I want to make you do what I want. I'm going to yell at you. I'm going to get mad at you. I'm going to give you the silent treatment for a week. I'm going to try to, little by little, make you become my slave, essentially. And that's not a relationship. That's not loving like a godly person. Correct? Correct. Absolutely. Positively. So, you know, if a person doesn't submit themselves to Christ, then they're not going to know how to love you. And so there's a lot of that going on in relationships. And then what happens when you've gone through a marriage and you were hurt, you were abused, say that they had the Jezebel spirit, and then you go through a divorce, and then you're ready, you think you're ready maybe to start dating again. And maybe this is your, you know, your second go round. And again, if a person is the Ahab, they're going to typically draw back to a person that's controlling and being judgmental and being harsh and not the way that they should be. And so they're going to be naturally drawn to that. So that's why it's so important for, of course, everyone to get healed of their wounds and get delivered of those demonic strongholds so they don't go back into another toxic relationship. Now get this, when you are starting, say, a dating relationship with someone, what are they going to do? They're going to put their best foot forward. They're going to try to become what they believe you want them to be. You know, oftentimes, you know, they can't just be themselves, because they know, of course, if they're struggling with that spirit of Jezebel, if they are to be themselves, they're going to be mean and controlling, and you won't marry them. So they'll try their best to tolerate being nice to you for as short a period as they can. You know, they'll try to get you married within a couple of months, if they can, on a second marriage, because then once you've committed and you've gone through with it, then they're like, I got you. Now I can trigger on you and be mean and controlling, and that's what happens in a lot of these situations. In fact, my good friend Dominic Herbst, she's a Christian psychologist, says it's very common, you know, especially in second marriages or third marriages, that when a person marries a person rather quickly, is the person that's not healed and delivered will trigger oftentimes on the honeymoon or within the first couple of weeks. You know, and when that happens, it's not fun, because you're like, wait a minute, why didn't you do this before we said I do? Why didn't you trigger, get mad, and treat me horribly before? Well, they know full and well, if they would have treated you that way, you would have never gone through with a wedding. You wouldn't have married them. You would have said, no way, I'm not marrying you. You're crazy. You've got some spirits that are not good. So as you're going through the dating process, the longer you can elongate the dating process, the more likely that they're going to slip up if they're still struggling with that. And again, they need to go through that process of soul wound healing and deliverance, and that's a process. That's why it's so critical. And a lot of times people might say, oh yeah, I've gone through deliverance, I'm good to go. And you see the good side of them, but you don't see the demonic side until after you say, I do. Then at that point, you're like, oh my gosh, it's too late now. We just said I do, and now on the honeymoon, they're triggering, they're jealous, they're behaving in wicked ways, evil ways, and that's not cool. So It's always best to go through the soul wound healing and deliverance prior to marriage, when you're dating or when you're engaged, because once they've got you, the people that operate in the Jezebel spirit, considered a narcissist, then the likelihood of them changing goes way down because there's no incentive. So that's why it's so incredibly important that, and I would say that if I were a pastor, I wouldn't marry any couple that had not gone through inner healing and deliverance, with the pastor themselves. They're going to marry you. I know a pastor up in Wisconsin. He said, I won't marry anybody unless they've gone through inner healing and deliverance. And that makes sense. Why would you set them up for failure? And so many people that have been hurt and wounded that aren't healed and delivered, when you're going through the dating process, the longer you can make it, if you can make it a year or longer, the more likelihood you'll see over time where they might get super jealous, they'll trigger in different ways. And all the triggering shows you is that they got some soul wound healing that they need to get done. And if they've not gotten those wounds healed from childhood or from dating, I know of one girl that she got dumped when she was in high school, and she felt rejected. And she was very, very much always had to be with the person. She couldn't just be by herself. She couldn't just be alone with the Lord. She felt alone, like a fear spirit came upon her. And so if she was in a relationship, it would cause her to feel very, very jealous. She was very insecure of herself. And so she would trigger all the time. And especially if she could get a guy ultimately to marry her. And she couldn't go very long. She would trigger super, super angry and bitter and go on, and felt justified in what she did, and then looked at herself as a victim. And she never got healed, never got delivered. And there's a lot of those cases that are out there. So when you're going through the dating process, getting to know a person that's been hurt and wounded, it's paramount. You've got to have them go through inner healing and deliverance. And I would say both. Again, both husband and wife, future husband and wives, need to do that. And so then, once a person has tied the knot, there's going to be a lot less triggering events. The person's going to feel much more at peace. They're not going to feel super duper jealous. They're not going to be prideful. They're not going to be struggling with addictions like alcohol, like overeating, like what other things? Drugs, sex, demonic sex, evil sex, perverse sex, things like that. They're going to be cleaner. And so you can deal with that, as you're going through the dating process, and or you get married. If they've gone through that process, they're going to have much less triggering events when you're married. There may be some times where things will pop up because it feels like to them something that happened that hurt them when they were younger or when they were in a previous relationship. Oftentimes, again, if you're married prior to that, then that person, if that person they were married to, operated, say, in a Jezebelic spirit, then they're going to feel a lot of things that would set them off when they come into a relationship with you. And so if you are saying something, or something would normally have caused them to have their spouse trigger in the past, and then they see that you're not triggering, they're kind of bracing themselves, waiting for, my ex used to always go off the handle when I would talk about this subject, or when I would, maybe, oftentimes people that are narcissists are having evil conversations, like on their phone, or they're looking at nude pictures of women or men or whatever. They're having these private conversations, and they don't want to have their phone given to their spouse. When you're healed and delivered, you're not doing that stuff. Nothing you have to keep a secret. You don't have to hide anything. So you can here you go, honey. You can go to the bathroom, leave your phone. It's no big deal. Leave Facebook open, leave YouTube open, whatever. There's nothing that's going on that you wouldn't. Whereas maybe a person that person's dated in the past or got married to, they'll never let you see their phone. They'll have 3 passwords on it. and never let it out of their hands, even when they go and pump gas or something. They gotta take the phone with them. Well, then you know they're up to something. You know, they're trying to protect the secrecy of doing some evil things and bad things. So again, when you do get married, if they've gone through some healing and deliverance, then what will normally happen is they may have some triggers here and there, and you can then work on it. So okay, let's pray and see what that's about. Do you have anything in the past that would have caused you to feel this way today? And then every single time, sure, there's going to be something in the past. It could be previous relationship that they just had. It could have been something from their father or their mother, dating relationships in high school where they've not been completely healed yet from that. So you can go back to that, and you can deal with that on a maybe once a month basis if there's triggering going on, or once every couple months. And then and I would recommend, again, for all couples to not only go through some soul wound healing and deliverance themselves, but to study it, to get to know the details of understanding why a person triggers, because then you can talk about it instead of having the person that triggers feel like they're justified and then go off on a handle for hours in a tirade. Instead of calming down, they need to calm down, and once they calm down, you can talk about it, and then you can actually take your spouse, you know, through an inner healing or deliverance session, because they know that you love them and that you're there for them. Whereas people that feel justified and they trigger and they want to blame everything on, you know, their spouse and look at themselves as a total victim, it's really hard to get those people healed, set free, and delivered. And again, I know of people that are like pastors at churches that operate in spirits of Jezebel, and they think that they're perfect, and yet they're not. And they would end up saying things, doing things to their spouse that hurt them. They're very prideful. Pride's kind of one of the biggest things that you'll see that people will struggle with getting delivered from. Of course, unforgiveness, and that's why we need to go through sessions with that. So again, you could have relationships too at work with people. I had a couple bosses that were not the way that they should be. They were wounded. I didn't know anything about healing and deliverance at that point, so I couldn't suggest that to them. But I had one boss that he was very controlling, very condescending, very narcissistic to all the people that worked with me at my company. And eventually, I just really sensed the Lord said, you need to say something to HR about it. So I did. I talked to them, and then they interviewed the other people that worked for him, and they all agreed with what my assessment was of the individual. And then they forced him to go to some training, some, what was it called? Sensitivity training or something like that. And then fortunately, the Lord took me out of the company, went to work for another company, an internet banking company. And so the people that were left behind that reported to him said it was kind of awkward because they could tell that he was not real happy that we reported him. But it's like, hello, you can't keep treating people this way. It's not good. So you could have relationships at work where people are operating in a narcissistic abuse. Now, I've had given counsel to people over the last, 7, 8 years, and told people to pray that either they get removed to a different boss, or maybe even taken out to a different job, or have their boss removed. And I've seen a lot of good success where people have seen that within a couple of months after praying that the Lord does that. And I'm like, wow, that's great. Because again, you can imagine if you're working for someone that's operating in that spirit, it can be very awkward because they have the power, they have the control, they're over you, you're gonna be getting paid, and they know that, and they'll take advantage of that. So again, if it's coming down to where you're starting to date a person, let's say that you're normally a gentle person, a gentle spirited person. That's who you normally are. You're not a type A controlling type person. So if you're more of a gentle person, you're gonna probably draw to people that are Jezebelic and or narcissistic. And it's imperative upon you to get yourself healed and delivered from the Ahab spirit, so that you don't draw into a relationship where they're going to be controlling you, because that's not going to be good. It's not healthy. And again, you got probably, like I say, about 85% of marriages are Jezebel and Ahab, where you have one person that's very controlling, type A. They're never do anything wrong, always right, blame everything that they do on you, and not look in the mirror at themselves. And if you're in that type of relationship, it's misery. It's horrible. I know what it's like. I can speak from experience. Again, I needed to get delivered, and the Lord delivered me in September 2008. I didn't know I needed deliverance. Most people don't. But once I did, I changed dramatically, and I was at peace, very patient, very kind, the way that I really wanted to be, and then I became that. And then when you get into a relationship with the person, then it's important, for us to not discount that people can be faking and can be lying and acting, because people that operate in Jezebel spirits are professional grade actors and actresses. They'll try to portray themselves as a victim all the time because they're hearing demonic spirits telling them that they're that way. So when you get into a relationship where you're starting to date, getting to know the person, again, take time. And if the person starts to love bomb you right away and make you feel pressured to get married shortly, then that can be a red flag, that they want to get married to you really quickly because they can't stand being nice to you. And they want to hurry up and marry you so that they can, tear you down, control you. And if you have a ministry, they want to destroy the ministry. I see it all the time where people that operate in Jezebel, they want to marry a person that has a ministry so that they can come against it, and they can lie about the person, cause them to feel despondent, and then tear it down. So if you're in a dating relationship with the person and you're not yet married, then now would be the time to go through some inner healing and deliverance sessions. And because that way what will happen is if the person refuses, really doesn't want to get delivered, those demons will start to manifest in them because they're still there in that person. Again, I tell people I can't get anybody healed and delivered that doesn't want to be. Majority of the people that come to us want to be, but there are on occasion, there's couples that are married and one person struggles more with the spirit of Jezebel, and it's much harder for them to get delivered because they like to stay in control. They don't want to act like they've done anything wrong. The demons are telling them that they're a victim, even though they're controlling and manipulating and treating their spouse horribly. So again, the longer that you can go through that process, the more that you'll see a better chance of them to manifest. And then at least that way, if they choose not to get healed and delivered, you've not gone through with the actual marriage. You said, nope, they don't want to be healed and delivered. They think they're fine. And I hear about this all the time, where people that are churchgoers, they could pray in tongues, they could have their own, ministries, but if they're not healed and delivered, they'll marry a person, and then all of a sudden they see a different side of them, typically within the first week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month max, into the marriage. Now, again, if you're new and your first time married, people in your teens or your 20s, early 20s, then oftentimes you don't know any of this because it's really, really hard to learn this. You can read it in a book, but as the Lord always tells me, experience is normally the best teacher. And if you aren't experienced in any of this, then it's always good to take it slow. Again, get yourself healed and delivered. Go through the process of that. Forgive people who've hurt you. Repent for your pride and sin. Command demonic spirits to go. When you're healed and delivered, or mostly healed and delivered, you're going to realize that sin doesn't have the attractiveness to you anymore. You don't want to. You don't want, and it's interesting, when you get healed and delivered, it's like you're not doing things that you have to hide, that you have to keep a secret from, because you're not, because sin doesn't have the hold over you anymore. It's like, I don't want to do that. Why would I want to do that? Why would I want to look at pornography? Why would I want to steal money from people? Why would I want to act like I'm a victim and get people to give me money? There's people on social media do that all the time. And it's sad. It's like, be who you really are. Well, you can if you're still hearing demonic spirits and you're behaving in ways that are not good. So Again, understand people who have gone through a lot of, when I was growing up, I didn't know that, I had a good father, I had a good mother, and I didn't understand, why a child, like a friend of mine, would have a father and mother that would treat them bad. And then I didn't know what the ramifications were. And of course, the church didn't teach any of this. Churches, would say, okay, forgive. Okay, most people have problems, struggling how to forgive. And then they'd say, well, you asked Jesus into your heart when you were 5, so you can't have any demons, even though they behaved very demonically and not the way that they should. So understand it's best to get yourself healed. Look in the mirror at yourself. Ask the Lord. Go through the process. Get yourself as healthy, as delivered as you possibly can. Then, when you get in a relationship, you will be able to discern at a higher level, which is good. Is this person being honest with me? Or are they just trying to tell me what I want to hear? Are they just trying to become and behave and act the way that they think that I want them to? Because, people that aren't healed and delivered, their goal is to marry a person and to control them and be mean to them and destroy them and destroy their self-confidence and stop them from doing what God's calling is. It's a huge red flag, of course. If you're in a relationship with someone and they want to stop what God's called you to do in your ministry, instead of coming alongside and being your partner and wanting to help, they're going to be there to try to stop it. And that's what Jezebel did, of course, is kill the prophets. She wanted to shut down anything of God, in 1 Kings and 2 Kings. And she threatened Elijah, who was like one of the strongest prophets in world history. And he wanted to die. He wanted to go into a cave and die. That's how you feel if you're in a relationship with someone who's not healed and delivered, is you want to die oftentimes, because they'll lie about you, they'll come against you, they'll treat you horribly. So anyway, I do take people through personal sessions. I do it every week. I've been doing now about, I guess, probably closer to 12 or 13 sessions a week with people around the world, and we've seen some phenomenal results with people where they come away from the session, they're like, oh my gosh, I am laughing now, and I have joy, and I have peace, and I don't have all the sadness and the anxiety and the voices and the so if you're interested in that, you can email my assistant Tina at tinak@restoredtofreedom.com, or you can leave a message at 317-459-7091. And I have a book called Freedom from Soul Wounds and Demons. It's available on Amazon. The people that have read it love it. Said, oh my gosh, this has changed my life. I've had another testimony that came in yesterday from a couple from Kentucky, and went through the book and saw significant breakthroughs, and many of them are like, man, this has really saved my life. Going down the road of struggling with sin and triggering and having a broken relationship and a marriage headed to divorce, to now I'm delivered, I'm healed, and I have the fruit of the Spirit now. And it's a great thing when that happens. So again, that book's called Freedom from Soul Wounds and Demons. It's available on Amazon in paperback, Kindle, and Audible. And I'm the one that reads it to you on Audible. So, alrighty, well, try and keep these to 30 minutes. So I will let you go. See you on Facebook and YouTube and TikTok. Alrighty, bye-bye.